Camila Reyes a widow with 2 children, was facing another ordinary day in her daily struggle for survival. Her eyes widened when she saw a wealthy man throwing a luxurious carpet into the trash can. Quickly, she decided to pick it up and unroll it. As soon as she opened it, a shiver ran through her body. Camila was desperate, looking for something edible to bring home. Her children, Luz Marina and Joaquin, played innocently at a safe distance, unaware of their mother's despair over not being able to provide even a simple meal. Camila, a woman with strong features and a determined look, carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. Widowed at 38, her life had turned into an endless series of challenges after her husband's death. "Mom, I'm hungry," complained Luz Marina, gently tugging at her mother's skirt. Camila offered a sad smile, promising they would soon find something to eat, although uncertainty gnawed at her inside. As she rummaged through a pile of garbage, her fingers touched something surprisingly soft. Pulling the object, she discovered a luxurious carpet, entirely out of place in that filthy environment. Her heart raced at the thought that the item could be worth some money. But what she found next left her breathless, a thick envelope stuffed with banknotes. "My God, that's a lot of money," she murmured to herself, instinctively looking around. The decision about what to do with that discovery weighed on her like a stone. "Mom, what happened?" Luz asked, noticing her mother's worried expression. Camila quickly hid the envelope. "Nothing, my love, just an old carpet," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Let's take it home." As they prepared to leave, Camila noticed a distant figure watching them. The silhouette was shrouded in the encroaching darkness, making it difficult to discern any details. The observer's presence made her heart race, mixing fear with adrenaline. "Mom, who is that person watching us?" Luz asked, her voice low and fearful. Camila squeezed her daughter's hand tighter. "I don't know, dear, but let's go home now," she said, quickening her pace with the children by her side. Each step back home was fraught with uncertainty and hope. Camila knew that the envelope could be the answer to many of her prayers, but she was also aware of the dangers that such a find could bring. The safety of her children was her priority, and she would do anything to protect them. As night fell, the path home seemed longer and filled with challenges, but Camila, with renewed determination, was ready to face whatever lay ahead. "Should we tell someone about what we found?" Joaquin asked, his eyes fixed on the carpet his mother was carrying, trying to decipher her expression. "We'll decide that at home," Camila replied, her mind spinning with the implications of the discovery. "For now, we need to keep this between us." They walked quickly, the sound of their hurried steps blending with the murmurs of the falling night. The figure watching them remained still, and when Camila looked back one last time, it had disappeared. The uncertainty of that vision left her uneasy, but the need to protect her children and the possible solution to their financial difficulties drove her forward. After discovering the envelope full of money, Camila closed the fragile door of her shack with a growing sense of unease. The humble home, made up of worn wooden walls and a roof that barely kept out the rain, seemed even more vulnerable that night. Luz and Joaquin watched their mother with sad eyes, still feeling the hunger they had expressed earlier. Before deciding on the next step, Camila improvised a simple meal with some vegetables she had managed to salvage earlier, calming her children's growling stomachs. While they ate, the weight of the find did not ease her nervousness. She knew she needed advice and help, but without a phone at home, her only option was to seek help in person. "Mommy, are we going to be okay?" Luz asked innocently, nibbling on a spoonful of dinner. Camila smiled at her, though her heart was tight with worry. "We will, dear, we just need to be careful," she replied, trying to hide her anxiety. Determined, she wrapped the envelope in an old cloth and told her children she would be back soon. Camila walked through the dimly lit streets of the neighborhood to the small local police station, where she knew she could find someone trustworthy. Upon arriving, she found Officer Diego Sanchez patrolling near the station, as was his habit. Diego was an old acquaintance who patrolled the neighborhood, always kind and attentive to the community's needs. "Diego, I need to talk to you," Camila said, her voice trembling but determined. Diego turned, recognizing the concern on Camila's face. "Of course," Camila. What happened? He asked, guiding her to a quieter spot where they could talk. With a deep sigh, Camila revealed what she had found. I found this envelope full of money inside a carpet thrown in the trash, she said, showing the well-wrapped package. Diego frowned, considering the situation. You did the right thing by coming to me, he said, carefully taking the envelope. This could be very dangerous, especially if someone is looking for this money. Camila nodded, relieved to have shared the burden but still worried about what would come next. I'll investigate this and see what we can do to ensure your safety and that of your children, Diego promised, looking into Camila's eyes with seriousness. Camila returned home with a little more peace of mind, knowing she had taken the first step to resolve the situation. When she entered, she found Luz and Joaquin already asleep, their faces peaceful despite everything. She sat beside them, gently stroking their heads, and murmured to herself, "We'll be fine. We'll get through this together." The night progressed slowly, and although the challenges were still many, Camila's determination had never been stronger. She knew that with the right help, she could find a way to give her children a better life. "Diego, I need help," said Camila, approaching him with the hidden envelope. "I found this today and I'm afraid it might bring trouble." Diego looked at the package seriously. "Let's see what you found," he said, guiding her inside the station where they could talk more privately. Camila explained the situation while Diego examined the money. "You did the right thing by bringing this here, Camila. This seems to be too large a sum of money not to be involved in something illegal. I'll register this and investigate where it came from, according to the serial numbers on the bills," Diego explained, already starting to fill out a report. Leaving the money in Diego's care, Camila felt a momentary relief. He promised to keep everything secret until more information was discovered. When she reached the entrance to her home, Camila's heart raced, still unsure if she had made the right choice. As she passed through her simple porch, a piece of paper caught her attention. A small envelope with a note was on the worn table. Camila picked it up and read the handwritten message. "Don't meddle where you're not called. Forget the money." The blood froze in her veins. She looked around but saw no one. Clutching the note in her hand, Camila closed her house door, now aware that the situation was more dangerous than she had imagined. The first thing she did was hug her children. Neighbors whispered among themselves as she passed, increasing Camila's sense of isolation. She knew there must be some rumor about what had happened. Probably someone had seen her go to the police. "Mom, why are people acting strange?" Joaquin asked one morning, watching through the kitchen window. Camila, preparing a modest coffee with the money she obtained from selling some things she found in the trash, thought deeply before answering her son. "Sometimes, people get nervous or scared when they don't understand something, dear. They don't know what happened, but they know something did." Luz, listening to the conversation, looked at her mother with her big worried eyes. "Do they think we did something wrong?" "No, my dear, we didn't do anything wrong," Camila assured, fixing Luz's hair while trying to disguise her own anxiety. As the day went on, the feeling of being watched didn't diminish. Camila noticed a black car she didn't recognize slowly passing along the dirt street where she lived. The first time it passed, she thought it was a coincidence. The second time, her heart started beating faster. When the car passed a third time, stopping briefly in front of her house before moving on, fear took hold of her. Camila knew she needed to take additional precautions. She decided to talk to an old friend, Juan, who was known for his wisdom and prudence. He always had a comforting word and wise advice to offer. "Juan, I'm in a complicated situation," she began, explaining the recent events and showing the threatening note she had received. Juan frowned, clearly concerned. "This is serious, Camila. You did the right thing by giving the money to Diego, but now we need to ensure your safety and that of your children," he said. "I'll help watch your house, and if necessary, we can find a safer place for you to stay for a while." Juan's determination gave Camila a bit more confidence. She knew she wasn't alone and that there were people willing to help her. That night, she made sure all doors and windows were locked and stayed alert for any strange sounds. With her children safe by her side, Camila fell asleep, knowing that despite the dangers, she would do whatever it took to protect them. The following days were tense, but the constant presence of Juan and Diego's frequent patrols brought some peace. Camila continued her routine, trying to maintain normalcy for her children while remaining vigilant. Slowly, life began to return to normal, though the shadow of the threat still loomed over her. Camila knew the journey was far from over, but with courage and support, she was ready to face any challenge that came her way. At night, while the children slept, Camila sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling, trying to calm her nerves. The silence of the house contrasted with the whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. Almost at midnight, the sound of an engine breaking the nighttime silence made her get up abruptly. Peeking through the torn curtain, she saw the same black car parked across the street. A hooded figure got out and started walking towards her house. Camila's heart raced. It can't be a coincidence, she murmured to herself, feeling a mix of fear and anger. She ran to the children's room and woke them up. "We need to go to the back of the house," she whispered, guiding them to a hidden spot where she kept some tools and old boxes. "Mom, what's happening?" Joaquin asked, his voice trembling in the darkness. "Stay quiet," Camila instructed, her voice firm, but her heart in turmoil. The minutes dragged on like hours as they waited in the dark. Camila listened to every sound outside, imagining if the figure would decide to enter. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the sound of the engine was heard again, and the car left. Camila let out a sigh of relief, but she knew the night had been more of a warning than an end to her problems. "Let's go back to bed, okay?" she said, trying to return some normalcy to her children's night. As she led the children back to bed, Camila knew things were far from okay. That night's visit was a clear reminder that the danger was still very close, perhaps closer than ever. The next morning after the nighttime incident, Camila had barely closed her eyes. As soon as the sun began to illuminate the dusty horizon, she was already up, making coffee in the kitchen, her mind still clouded by fear and uncertainty. Luz and Joaquin woke up to the smell of coffee and joined her, sensing the tension still floating in the air. "Mom, are you okay?" Joaquin asked, noticing the deep circles under Camila's eyes. She forced a smile as she served the coffee. "Yes, my love, just a little tired," she lied, trying to protect the children from her own worries. Camila knew she needed a plan. After dropping the children off at school, she went to the police station again. Diego was there, and she told him about the incident the night before. "They know you brought the money here, Diego. Someone must have seen or heard something. I'm afraid of what might happen to my children." Diego frowned, concerned. "We'll increase surveillance in your area. I'll make sure there are regular patrols. And if necessary, we can move you and the children to a safe place until we resolve this." Diego's proposal brought some relief, but Camila knew that more drastic measures might be needed. When she returned home, she found Juan waiting on the porch. "I heard what happened," he said with a serious look. "We need to make sure you and the children are safe. I have a place where you can stay for a while, away from here. It's not much, but it's safe." Camila considered the offer, knowing that leaving home was an extreme measure, but perhaps necessary. "Thank you, Juan. I'll think about it. We need security now more than ever." That night, while Luz and Joaquin slept, Camila started packing some essential belongings. She knew she couldn't continue living under constant threat. Her priority was the safety of her children, and she was willing to do whatever it took to ensure that. The following days were spent preparing. With Diego and Juan's help, Camila planned the move to the new location. Under the cover of night, with the children sleeping, she silently said goodbye to her home, carrying hopes for a safer future. Every step she took led her away from danger and closer to a new chance at life. Though the path ahead was still full of uncertainties, Camila felt strengthened by the courage to protect those she loved most. She knew that with determination and support, she could overcome any adversity. The previous day had been somewhat more hopeful for Camila. She had managed to sell several things, and as a result, they had a quiet breakfast. Camila's dream was to get a good job so her children could eat with dignity. However, Few were willing to hire a simple woman like her, especially since she didn't have money to buy suitable clothes for interviews. She dressed with the little she had, always trying to present the best version of herself. After breakfast, there was a knock at the door. Camila's heart jumped in her chest. Cautiously, she approached and opened the door. There stood Diego, the police officer, with a grave expression. "Camila, we need to talk," he said, entering. "There has been a development about the money you found." She led him to the small kitchen table, and Diego looked at her seriously before continuing. "We discovered that the money is directly linked to a large financial fraud network. And more concerning, we found out how they knew you found the money." Camila swallowed hard, feeling a knot form in her throat. "How do they know?" she asked, fearing the answer. "A man was watching the trash can while you found the carpet. A distant camera captured him leaving the carpet and shortly after, you finding the object. But in the recording, we couldn't identify him. So we checked the origin of the money and concluded that the person behind all this is Sergio Ruiz, a name you might recognize. He is very influential and dangerous." Camila's mind spun. Sergio Ruiz was known in the city, a businessman with a reputation both as a philanthropist and as someone not to be crossed. Some said he was involved with the mafia. Camila had seen the man in the neighborhood with some dangerous men. "What does he want from me?" Camila asked, her voice trembling slightly. "He wants to ensure that you don't cooperate with the police. He has a lot to lose if this investigation continues," Diego explained, looking directly into her eyes. As soon as Diego left, a noise outside caught Camila's attention. She peeked through the window and saw a car parking. It wasn't the black car from before, but a more expensive and imposing vehicle. Sergio Ruiz himself got out, accompanied by two large men who seemed to be there to ensure the mobster's safety. This time, Camila couldn't ignore him. There was no time to flee. Trembling with fear, she opened the door. Sergio Ruiz looked at her with a cold smile, his eyes evaluating every detail. "Camila Reyes, right?" His voice was surprisingly soft but carried an implicit threat. "Can we talk?" Camila nodded, trying to stay calm. "Of course," she replied, stepping back to let him in. The two men stayed outside, but their presence was intimidating. Sergio entered the house and looked around with disguised disdain. "A modest home," he commented, as if it were a casual observation. "You know, Camila, I heard you found something that belongs to me." Camila swallowed hard. "Yes, I found an envelope with money. I've already given it to the police," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Sergio's smile disappeared. "I know," he replied, his voice now cold as ice. "And that's exactly why I'm here. I want you to understand the gravity of the situation. That money is part of something much bigger, and you, unintentionally, got involved." Camila felt a chill run down her spine. "I just wanted to do the right thing," she murmured. Sergio leaned in closer, his eyes piercing hers. "The right thing, Camila, is to forget this ever happened. Don't talk to the police. Don't tell anyone. If you cooperate, I'll ensure you and your children stay safe. But if you insist on continuing this, I can't guarantee your safety." Camila felt the weight of the threat in his words. "What do you want me to do?" she asked, her voice weak. "Simply continue your life as if nothing happened," Sergio said, stepping back. "And remember, I'm always watching." With that, he turned and left, leaving Camila alone in the room. The children, awakened by their mother's tense voice, appeared at the bedroom door. "Mom, who was that man?" Luz asked, her eyes filled with fear. Camila looked at her children, feeling powerless but determined to protect them. "No one we need to worry about," she lied, forcing a smile. "We'll be fine, I promise." But she knew that promise would be difficult to keep. From that moment on, her life and her children's were enmeshed in a web of dangers and uncertainties. Camila would have to be stronger and more cautious than ever to ensure her family's safety.
"Camila, dear, I'm Sergio Ruiz."
"I believe you've heard my name in this city," Sergio began, his voice smooth as honey. "We've heard about your find and were very impressed by your honesty," he said ironically. It was clear from his tone that he was displeased that Camila had returned the money to the police, as it could lead to its discovery. Despite the fear she felt, Camila knew she couldn't show anything that could be used against her. "What do you want with me, Sergio?" Sergio kept his focus on Camila. "I just want to ensure there are no misunderstandings. It would be a shame if your cooperation with the police harmed the community. We both know that sometimes it's better to let things be, don't we? And pretend we didn't find anything." Sergio's gaze was a clear warning, and Camila felt a shiver run down her spine. He was there not only to intimidate her but to do so publicly, showing he wasn't afraid of the consequences of his actions. Even if Camila had reported him to the police, he came to her house. By this time, all the neighbors must have seen Sergio's car at her door. It was a reminder that he wasn't afraid of those who reported him or the police. "I'll think about what you said," Camila managed to say, her voice firmer than she felt. Sergio smiled again, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Perfect, that's all I ask," he said, turning and signaling his bodyguards to follow him as he returned to his car. After the man's departure, Camila felt the storm was far from over. "I'll solve this," she said, but the words felt more like a question than a statement. As she closed the door, she knew the challenge she now faced was greater than she could have ever imagined. In the days following Sergio Ruiz's visit, Camila felt as if she were living under a microscope. The neighbors' stares grew heavier, the whispers more frequent, and the atmosphere around her house more oppressive. Camila did her best to maintain a normal routine for Luz and Joaquin, but the constant fear of retaliation consumed her thoughts at every moment. "Mom, people are acting weird again," Joaquin commented as they returned from a quick trip to the local market. Camila held his hand firmly, squeezing it slightly. "We'll be fine, we just need to be strong," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. One day, upon arriving home, Camila noticed something strange on the front door. A message was scrawled in red ink, the letters carelessly formed, "Stop talking or pay the price." Camila's heart raced. She looked around, searching for someone who might have been the author of the message, but the streets were eerily quiet. They wanted her to drop the complaint, probably claiming she had made a mistake and that the money was hers. Determination and fear mixed inside her. She knew that giving in to the threats could ensure immediate safety, but it would also mean living constantly under the yoke of fear. She decided to seek Juan's help again. He had become a pillar of support in such turbulent times. "Juan, I need to talk," she said, finding him in his small workshop at the back of the house. "They're threatening me openly now. I need to ensure my children's safety." Juan looked at her with concern. "Camila, I told you I have a place for you to stay. It's safe and secluded. We can go there immediately." Camila hesitated, but she knew this was the best option. "Let's do it," she finally agreed. "But what about what's happening here? I can't just run away and leave this in Diego's hands." "Diego can handle it," Juan assured. "The most important thing now is your safety and that of the children. We can come back when things are calmer." That night, Camila, Luz, and Joaquin left for Juan's refuge, a small site far from the city. There, Juan had prepared everything to welcome them. The place was simple but safe, giving Camila a sense of peace she hadn't felt in weeks. "Thank you, Juan," she said, her voice full of gratitude and relief. "Don't worry, Camila. We'll get through this together," he replied, with a comforting smile. The days at the refuge brought a bit of normalcy back to Camila and her children's lives. They could play and laugh without fear, and Camila began to feel there was a light at the end of the tunnel. Meanwhile, Diego worked tirelessly on the investigation, determined to dismantle Sergio Ruiz's network and ensure Camila and her family could return home safely. Camila's courage and her friends' support showed that even in the face of great adversity, hope and willpower could prevail. She knew the path ahead would still be difficult, but she was ready to face it, certain that she was not alone. "Will this help?" Camila asked, the doubt clear in her voice. "We'll do everything we can," Diego assured her, though his voice also carried a note of uncertainty. After Diego left, Camila sat on the couch, watching Luz and Joaquin play. She felt torn between telling them the whole truth about the danger they faced and maintaining a facade of normality to protect their innocence. On the rainy morning of the next day, Camila heard a noise outside and opened the door to her house. On the doorstep was a thick envelope with no address, just Camila's name written on the front. Her heart raced as she looked around before picking up the envelope and taking it inside. The anonymous handwriting and the absence of a sender already suggested that the contents would be something more than disturbing. "Mom, did someone knock on the door?" Joaquin asked, watching her from the living room. "No, dear, it must have been a mistaken delivery, I think," Camila lied, trying to keep her voice steady as she headed to the kitchen to open the envelope in private. She hated lying to her son, but it was necessary to keep him safe. Inside, she found a stack of densely packed documents and photographs. Camila began to flip through the papers, and with each page she turned, her expression became paler. The documents detailed a network of corruption not only linked to Sergio Ruiz but intertwined with several prominent public figures in the city. There were records of payments, inflated contracts, and communications that implicated a series of illegal activities. Someone had left this to help her with the complaint. "This is much worse than I imagined," Camila whispered to herself, feeling the weight of the truth in her hands. Determined to understand the situation better, Camila spent the entire morning analyzing the documents, absorbing every detail, every implication. The connections went beyond what she could have imagined, reaching the highest spheres of local power. By afternoon, while Luz and Joaquin played in the yard, Camila sat in a chair, contemplating the next steps. She knew that disclosing this information could trigger even more severe consequences, but she also understood that staying silent could perpetuate the corruption that affected so many lives. With her mind full of thoughts and worries, Camila decided she needed help processing everything. She called Diego again, asking to meet in a safe place. "Diego, I need to talk to you urgently. I found more evidence about the corruption network. We need to act cautiously." Diego agreed to meet her discreetly at a downtown cafe, a place where they could talk without drawing attention. When they met, Camila handed him the documents and explained what she had discovered. "Diego, this is much bigger than we thought. I need your help to ensure my family's safety and to bring this evidence to the proper authorities." Diego quickly scanned the documents, his face growing increasingly serious. "You did the right thing bringing this to me, Camila. We'll need to involve the federal police and ensure that you and your children are protected." From that moment on, Diego took steps to ensure Camila and her family's safety, involving federal authorities in the investigation. An operation was launched to dismantle the corruption network and arrest Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices. During this time, Camila and her children were taken to a safe location, away from the watchful eyes of the criminals. Time passed, and gradually life began to return to normal. Sergio Ruiz and many others involved in the network were arrested, thanks to the evidence provided by Camila. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but she felt stronger and more determined than ever. Her courage and determination had made a difference, and now she could finally begin to build a better future for herself and her children, free from the fear and corruption that once haunted them. Then, the public phone in front of her house rang, breaking the silence of the street. Camila ran to it and answered with trembling hands. "Camila Reyes." A distorted voice asked on the other end of the line. "Yes, it's me," she replied, the caution evident in her voice. "You don't know me, but I know what you received today. It's crucial that you understand the seriousness of this information I sent you. Don't trust anyone," the voice warned, and before Camila could ask more, the call was cut off. Camila stood there, the phone still in her hand, the warning echoing in her mind. She needed help, but as the anonymous voice had warned, who could she trust? Camila felt increasingly isolated in her struggle, with the true extent of the corruption now clearly before her, more personal and closer than she could have ever imagined. Returning home, the documents remained spread out before her, each line a web of connections and corruption that now seemed to suffocate her. "Mom, do you want to play with us?" Luz called from the door with her innocent voice. "Later, dear," Camila replied, forcing a smile. She got up, locking the documents in a drawer before joining her children. As she watched Luz and Joaquin play, the seriousness of her situation became even more palpable. Protecting those two was her priority, but how far could she go without compromising their safety? Camila's internal conflict grew. She pondered whether to expose the documents to the police and risk everything or stay safe but complicit by silence. Each option carried its own weight, its own pain. "Mom, I'm going to Javier's house to play," Joaquin shouted from the door, breaking Camila's chain of thoughts. "Wait, Joaquin, I'll go with you," Camila called, but he had already left before she finished her sentence. Camila's heart raced. She ran to the door, calling him, but Joaquin was already out of sight. Anxiety consumed her as she considered all the possible consequences of her decision to confront Sergio Ruiz. Hours passed, and Joaquin did not return. The sky was already tinged with shades of orange and purple when Camila started searching for all his friends in the neighborhood, taking Luz with her. She began asking everyone if they had seen her son. However, no one knew of his whereabouts. "Mom, where is Joaquin?" "He's going to miss dinner," Luz asked, the concern beginning to form in her small eyes. Camila tried to stay calm, but the anguish was evident in her voice. "He must be around. He'll be back soon," she tried to convince herself and her daughter. When darkness finally fell, and there was still no sign of Joaquin, panic took hold of Camila. She grabbed the public phone, her hands trembling as she dialed Diego's number again. "Diego, it's Camila. My son Joaquin is missing. He just went to a friend's house, and it's been hours," she babbled, her voice breaking with fear. "I'll send a patrol right away, Camila. We'll find him," Diego assured her firmly. Camila felt helpless as she awaited the patrol's arrival. Every second seemed like an eternity. The minutes passed, and the anguish grew, suffocating her. Finally, the red and blue lights of the police car illuminated the street. Diego quickly got out of the car and ran to Camila. "We'll find him, Camila. I need you to tell me exactly where he could be." "He said he was going to Javier's house, but I've already looked there, and no one knows where he is," Camila replied, her voice trembling. Diego quickly organized a neighborhood search, involving other police officers and neighbors. The hours passed with the intense search, but there was no sign of Joaquin. Camila was on the verge of despair when the public phone rang again. With her heart in her throat, she ran to answer. "Hello." Her voice was an anxious whisper. "Camila, we have your son," said the distorted voice. "If you want to see him again, you need to do exactly what we say. Do not talk to the police. Understand?" Camila felt the world collapse around her. "Please, don't hurt my son. I'll do whatever you ask," she pleaded, trying to keep her voice steady. "Good. You'll receive instructions soon. Remember, don't involve the police, or you'll never see your son again," the voice threatened before hanging up. Camila stood there, the phone still in her hand, despair washing over her. Diego, seeing her expression, quickly approached. "Camila, what happened?" She looked at him, tears in her eyes. "They have Joaquin. They said not to involve the police, or I'll never see him again." Diego was silent for a moment, then placed a hand on Camila's shoulder. "We'll bring him back, Camila. But we need to be smart. I'll help you deal with this. You're not alone." With Diego's help, Camila planned how to follow the kidnappers' instructions while maintaining discreet contact with the police. They knew they couldn't risk Joaquin's life, but they also couldn't let the criminals go unpunished. The night dragged on in tense silence as Camila awaited further instructions. Every sound, every shadow, seemed a threat. But the determination to save her son kept her strong. Finally, a new call came, giving Camila instructions for a meeting. With a heavy heart, she prepared to face the unknown, determined to bring Joaquin back home. With Diego and the police watching closely, Camila followed the kidnappers' instructions. The tension was palpable as she approached the meeting point. When she finally saw Joaquin, tied up and scared, her heart almost stopped. But with the quick and coordinated intervention of the police, the kidnappers were surprised and captured. Joaquin was freed, running into his mother's arms. That moment of reunion was an indescribable relief for Camila. Despite all the challenges and dangers, her determination and Diego's help had prevailed. She knew the path would still be difficult, but now, with her son safe, she felt stronger and ready to face any adversity that lay ahead. Camila hung up the phone, her heart pounding uncontrollably. The idea that Joaquin's disappearance could be related to her decision to fight against corruption filled her with indescribable terror. She wondered if her quest for justice had gone too far, if the price to pay would be more than she was willing to offer. The night dragged on slowly, and every minute without news of Joaquin seemed like an eternity for Camila. She paced back and forth in the living room, frequently peeking out the window, hoping to see her son running back home. Luz, sensing the tension, played quietly in a corner, casting worried glances at her mother from time to time. Suddenly, Camila heard the sound of a car approaching her house and went to the door. She immediately recognized Sergio Ruiz's vehicle and trembled. If he was with her son, Camila would be ready to turn into a viper, ready to strike. "I won't let anyone harm Joaquin," she thought. "Where is my son?" she asked Sergio as soon as he got close enough to hear her. "Your son, dear? You must be out of your mind," he replied ironically. "I've come to propose a deal," Sergio said in a neutral voice. "If you do anything to Joaquin," she threatened, leaving the sentence hanging, not intimidated by the powerful man before her, "I can indeed do something to your son. That's why I need you to cooperate. I'll give you a large sum of money to ensure your silence about everything you discovered. You will have to hand over everything you know to me. That way, you will never hear my name again, and your family will be safe," he said. Camila knew he was lying. She would never be safe after returning Sergio's money and reporting him. "You have until tomorrow to decide. Otherwise, you'll suffer the consequences," he finished, turning his back on Camila. She knew he wasn't lying or exaggerating. Her heart beat hard in her chest. Her worry for her son increased. Camila wouldn't risk Joaquin's life, but she knew that making a deal with Sergio would be useless. Camila was still anguished when she heard the sound of police sirens. She ran to the door, fearing something had happened. It was Diego getting out of a police car, his serious expression bringing a mix of relief and anxiety. "We found him," Diego said quickly as soon as Camila opened the door. "He's fine. He was playing in a park nearby with a friend and lost track of time." Camila felt such immense relief that she could barely stand. She hugged Diego, tears finally streaming down her face. "Thank you, Diego. I was so scared," she said, her voice trembling. Diego held her by the shoulders, looking into her eyes. "Camila, we need to ensure that you and your family are safe. The situation with Sergio is very dangerous. We'll take you to a safe place for now. You did the right thing by bringing this information to us, but now we need to protect you." Camila nodded, knowing this was the best decision. "Yes, let's go. I just want my children to be safe." With Diego's help, Camila and her children were taken to a safe location, away from the watchful eyes of Sergio and his accomplices. During this time, Diego and his team worked tirelessly to gather more evidence and plan the arrest of Sergio Ruiz and the others involved in the corruption network. While in the safe house, Camila tried to maintain a normal routine for Luz and Joaquin. They played, studied, and tried to forget the constant fear that pursued them. With each visit from Diego, he brought news about the progress of the investigation, giving Camila hope that this terrible situation would soon end. Finally, the day arrived. Diego came with the news Camila had been waiting for. "We did it, Camila. Sergio Ruiz and several of his accomplices were arrested this morning. The evidence you provided was crucial to the success of the operation. You are free." Camila could hardly believe it. She hugged Diego, tears of relief streaming down her face. "Thank you, Diego. You saved our lives." Diego smiled. "You were the real hero, Camila. Your courage made the difference. Now you can go back home and start over." Camila and her children returned home, finally free from the fear that had surrounded them. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, but with the strength she had shown, she was ready to face them. With Diego and her friends by her side, Camila was determined to build a new and safe life for her family, full of hope and possibilities. Camila sighed in relief, feeling the weight of the world lift from her shoulders for a moment. "Thank you, Diego. Thank you for everything." "He's coming." Diego pointed to the car, from which Joaquin hesitantly and visibly embarrassed was getting out. Joaquin and a friend had gone to play outside and had lost track of time. That's why Camila couldn't find him when she looked. Although Camila was worried about the threats, fearing something would happen to her son, the situation turned out to be a simple misunderstanding. Joaquin was safe and had not been the target of any malicious act involving his mother and the corruption in the city. After a tight hug and many tears, Camila prepared to thank Diego again, but he interrupted her with a serious gesture. "We need to talk, Camila," inside. Camila told Diego about Sergio's visit and his proposed deal. However, the policeman was not convinced. "You and I know that making a deal with Sergio guarantees nothing in the long run. It's just a purchase of silence, not of safety," Diego replied. Camila reflected deeply, every part of her being struggling with the moral dilemma before her. "I can't accept it, not after everything I've seen and know. It would be the same as being an accomplice, but I fear for my children's lives." Diego nodded, respecting her decision. "I figured you'd say that. I'll keep an eye on Joaquin and Luz, and I'll alert all the officers to keep them safe." After Diego left, Camila felt a strange peace, mixed with fear. She was grateful that Joaquin was safe and, at the same time, feared that something would happen. She prepared the children for bed, trying to act as if everything was normal. Feeling suffocated with worry, Camila went to the front of the house to get some fresh air. However, her sense of dread increased when she saw the front door ajar. She remembered locking it. When she went to the porch on the worn table, there was an envelope with several photographs of her and her children, with a message scrawled in red, "Think carefully about your choices." Terrified, Camila grabbed the envelope and quickly went back inside, locking the door behind her. She felt the ground fall from under her feet. The photos were a clear threat, and the message in red only reinforced the imminent danger. She knew she could no longer delay the decision. The next morning, Camila went to the police station to meet Diego. "I need help to ensure my children's and my safety. I'm willing to testify and hand over all the evidence I have against Sergio Ruiz and his corruption network." Diego looked at Camila with respect and determination. "We'll make sure you and your children are safe, Camila. You're doing the right thing." Immediately, Diego arranged police protection for Camila's family and began the process of putting them in witness protection. Meanwhile, Camila handed over all the evidence she had against Sergio and his accomplices. The investigation gained momentum, and with Camila's testimony, the authorities managed to dismantle the corruption network. Sergio Ruiz and many of his accomplices were arrested, and the news of the corruption spread throughout the city, causing a significant impact. Camila, Luz, and Joaquin were taken to a safe place where they could restart their lives away from danger. Although she knew the journey would be long and full of challenges, Camila felt a sense of relief and hope. She had made the right choice, not just for herself, but mainly for her children. With the help of Diego and the authorities, justice prevailed. In the new home, Camila began to build a new life for her family. Gradually, tranquility returned to their days, and she felt they could finally live without fear. Camila's courage and will to fight for justice brought a better future for all of them, showing that even amid great adversities, it is possible to find hope and rebuild life. Trembling, Camila picked up the photograph, realizing that her decision to fight had intensified the dangerous game she was involved in. She knew now that each step forward would be even more perilous, but retreating was not an option. The challenge was just beginning. The next day, 24 hours after Sergio's threat, near the time limit set by him, the situation worsened. She received a call on the public phone. It was Diego's police partner, the urgency in his voice unmistakable. "Camila, I need you to come to the hospital now." "What happened?" Camila's voice trembled, fearing the answer. Diego was found in the park this morning, severely injured. He's in critical condition, intubated, unable to speak, but he asked me to warn you about something immediately, Marco said, his voice carrying a weight that made Camila's heart sink. Without losing a second, Camila arranged for someone to watch her children and rushed to the hospital. The white, sterile hospital corridor seemed to stretch infinitely. As she made her way to the ICU where Diego was admitted, entering the room, Camila was met with the sight of Diego motionless in the hospital bed, surrounded by tubes and machines beeping intermittently. Tears filled her eyes as she saw her friend and ally in that state. Marco, Diego's police partner, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. He was attacked from behind, without a chance to defend himself. It looks like they knew exactly when he would be alone, Marco explained, the barely contained anger in his voice. Camila felt a mix of pain and rage. Why would they do this to him? She asked, though deep down she knew the answer. They want to intimidate you, Camila. They want you to stop, Marco said directly, his gaze fixed on hers. The reality of those words hit Camila like a punch. The attack on Diego was not just a message for him, but a clear warning for her. As she sat by Diego's bed, holding his cold hand, Camila reflected on what to do. Each moment spent by her injured friend's side felt like her determination was growing stronger. They want me to stop and abandon the complaint, she murmured to herself. But I can't, not now. Returning home that night, Camila felt the weight of her decision. She knew that continuing to fight could bring even more severe consequences. But the alternative, silence, now seemed impossible. As she opened her door, a sense of desolation washed over her. It was clear that her fight had cost her dearly, and the price could continue to rise. My God, please protect me. I just wanted to return the money and do the right thing, she prayed, frightened. Camila had barely closed the door behind her when she noticed something strange. An envelope was carelessly thrown on the doormat. On it, grotesquely scrawled, was her name. Trembling, Camila picked up the envelope, tearing it open with shaky hands. Inside, she found a single sheet of paper with a message written in capital letters. This is your last warning. Camila held the paper with trembling hands, the reality of her situation more palpable than ever. With each decision, each step she took, the shadow of danger loomed larger, touching everything and everyone she loved. The weeks following the last warning were marked by palpable tension that seemed to envelop Camila's house like a thick fog. Each passing day reinforced security at home, adding more wood to block the door and installing new barricades on the windows. Life inside her home had become a series of carefully orchestrated routines to ensure everyone's safety. Camila knew she needed a definitive solution. She sought out Marco again, this time determined to take more drastic measures. Marco, I can't keep living like this. We need to ensure Sergio and his men are arrested quickly. Marco agreed. We're working on it, Camila. But we need more concrete evidence to ensure they don't escape justice. Your safety is the priority, and we're already organizing a plan to catch Sergio in the act. With Marco and the police's help, Camila agreed to participate in a risky operation. The idea was to lure Sergio to a meeting where he would feel safe to speak openly about his illegal activities, with everything being recorded as evidence. I know it's dangerous, but it's the only way to ensure he pays for everything, Camila said, trying to stay brave in the face of the situation. The day of the meeting arrived, and Camila prepared carefully. She dressed simply but dignified, and carried a hidden microphone provided by the police. The chosen location was an abandoned warehouse where the police could monitor everything closely without being detected. Sergio arrived punctually, with his men by his side. So you've decided to cooperate? He asked with a cynical smile. Yes, but I need guarantees, Camila replied, her voice firm despite the fear she felt. I want to know my children will be safe.
Sergio laughed.
That depends on you. Hand over everything you have, and maybe we can make a deal. As they talked, Camila struggled to stay calm, knowing every word was being recorded. Finally, Sergio began to speak more openly about his operations, believing he had Camila under control. When he mentioned specific details about his crimes, Marco and his team stormed the warehouse, arresting Sergio and his men in the act. "It's all over, Sergio," Marco said, handcuffing him. "You're under arrest for corruption, extortion, and several other crimes." Camila, though trembling with relief and adrenaline, knew the fight was far from over. There were still legal processes to face, but capturing Sergio was a crucial step. With continued support from the police and her friends, she was determined to rebuild her life and protect her family. In the months that followed, justice began to be served. Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices were tried and convicted, thanks to the evidence and testimony provided by Camila. She and her children were relocated to a new city where they could start anew without the weight of the past. Although the scars of that time were still present, Camila knew she had done the right thing. With determination and courage, Camila rebuilt her life, creating a safe and loving environment for Luz and Joaquin. She knew there would always be challenges, but she was ready to face them, armed with the strength she had discovered within herself. And so, with renewed hope, Camila looked to the future, knowing that justice, though difficult, was possible. One cloudy afternoon, while Camila was organizing the documents she had received, an unexpected call broke the anxious monotony that had settled in. It was Marco, Diego's partner, with news that would make her heart stop for a moment. "Camila, you won't believe it. Diego woke up and is talking. He wants to testify, to tell everything he knows about the Ruiz and the corruption in the city. You need to testify too." Camila felt a mix of relief and fear. "I'm glad Diego has improved, Marco, but is it safe after everything he's been through?" "We're taking all the precautions. Diego is under police protection, and we're planning the hearing to keep everything secret until the last possible moment," Marco explained, his voice carrying firm determination. In the days leading up to the testimony, Camila felt torn between the hope that they could finally expose the truth and the lingering fear of more reprisals. She visited Diego in the safe place where he was being kept, finding him noticeably recovered but still marked by the events that had nearly cost him his life. "Camila, we can't let him get away with this. He had me attacked, and he's threatening you and others. This is bigger than me, bigger than us," Diego said, with a conviction that strengthened Camila's resolve. "We have to end this." Returning home on the eve of the testimony, Camila prepared a meal for her children with the little she had in the cupboards, trying to hide the anxiety pulsing beneath her calm facade. After putting Luz and Joaquin to bed, she allowed herself a few moments of quiet, looking at the starry sky, seeking some peace before the storm she knew was coming. It was almost midnight when the phone rang, cutting through the night silence with its urgent ring. Camila answered, her heart pounding. "Camila, it's me, Diego. Someone's trying to break in where I'm hiding. I can hear noises outside. It seems they know where I am. Try to stay safe. They might be coming there too." Camila's blood ran cold. "I'll call Marco right now and send reinforcements. Hang in there, Diego." Hanging up the phone, Camila felt every heartbeat like a hammer in her consciousness. She knew the next few hours would be crucial. As she called Marco to inform him of the situation, a sense of despair mingled with fierce determination. She would not let fear be the end of this fight. Diego had decided to face danger to tell the truth, and she would stand by his side, no matter what. The hours following Diego's call were unbearably tense. Camila could barely stay still, pacing around the house while waiting for news. Finally, the sun began to lighten the sky, bringing with it the day of the trial that could change everything. Arriving at the courthouse, Camila felt the eyes of everyone on her. Some looks were sympathetic, others disdainful, and some had a malicious glint. Marco informed her that Diego was safe, that the police had responded in time, preventing the worst. With that small relief, Camila prepared to enter the courtroom, knowing that everything now was crucial. The courtroom was packed. Camila felt the weight of expectations and the murmur of people around. She walked to the front, where Diego was already seated, looking at her with a determined expression. Camila took a deep breath, feeling Marco's presence behind her as a pillar of support. The judge began the session, and evidence was soon presented. Diego was the first to testify, his voice firm despite his physical fragility. He detailed the acts of corruption and the threats from Sergio Ruiz, making it clear that the integrity of the city was at stake. When it was Camila's turn, she stood up and walked to the witness stand. She looked around, finding familiar and unfamiliar faces, and finally settled her eyes on Sergio, who watched her with a cold gaze. "I just wanted to do the right thing," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "I found that money and knew something was wrong. I never imagined it would bring us here." Camila told her story, detailing what she had discovered and the threats she had faced. She described the photographs, the threatening notes, and the attack on Diego. Her voice steadied as she continued, feeling the strength of the truth in every word. "We cannot allow people like Sergio Ruiz to continue destroying our lives and our city. We need justice." At the end of her testimony, the room was silent. The judge thanked both of them and declared a recess to deliberate. As they waited, Camila sat next to Diego, feeling a sense of relief for having spoken. Marco approached, offering words of encouragement. After what felt like an eternity, the judge returned and called for silence in the courtroom. After hearing the testimonies and reviewing the evidence presented, the court finds Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices guilty of corruption, extortion, and attempted murder. They are sentenced to immediate imprisonment. The room erupted in murmurs and various reactions. Camila felt tears roll down her face, a mix of relief and exhaustion. Diego held her hand, both sharing a moment of victory and hope. They knew there was still a long road ahead, but this was a decisive step in the fight for justice. With Sergio and his accomplices imprisoned, the city began to recover slowly. Camila and her children were relocated to a safe place, where they could start a new life. Diego continued to be a constant support, and Marco ensured they had everything they needed to begin again. The following days were of reconstruction and healing. Camila found a new job, and her children started attending a new school. The community around them welcomed them with open arms, and for the first time in a long time, Camila felt they could live without fear. Although the scars of the past remained, Camila and Diego's courage had brought justice and hope to many. Their story became a symbol of resilience and determination, inspiring others to fight for what is right, even when the obstacles seemed insurmountable. And so, with the support of her new community and the unwavering strength of her family, Camila looked to the future with renewed hope, ready to face any challenge that came her way. Diego was already in the courtroom, looking pale and somewhat frail, but his determination was palpable. Together, they exchanged a look of complicity and strength before taking their seats. The trial began with the prosecutor outlining the corruption network, citing evidence and calling witnesses who bravely detailed how Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices manipulated contracts and bribed officials. Diego was one of the key witnesses, and his testimony was both an account of corruption and an act of defiance. Camila watched every face in the courtroom, trying to read their reactions. Sergio Ruiz was present, impeccably dressed, his posture calm, but his eyes were hard and cold. Beside him, his lawyers whispered, fervently noting every word of Diego's testimony. When it was Camila's turn to testify, she walked to the front with firm steps despite the fear she felt. With every word she spoke, she exposed not only Sergio's crimes but also her own vulnerability. During a recess, as Camila returned to her seat, a man she recognized as one of Sergio's closest associates discreetly handed her a note. Camila took it with trembling hands and unfolded it under the table, reading the hurriedly written words. "This won't end here. Be careful." Camila's blood ran cold. She looked around to see if anyone had noticed the exchange, but everyone was busy with their own conversations and preparations for the next session. When the trial resumed, Camila felt every word of the threat burning in her mind. She tried to focus on the proceedings, the lawyer's questions, the witnesses' answers, but part of her was always alert, always expecting the next blow. Finally, she revealed the note she had been given. The courtroom was charged with heavy energy. People murmured, the tension hanging in the air. "This is not just a case of corruption, it is a matter of justice and humanity," declared Camila, her voice resonating through the attentive silence of the courtroom. "I chose not to stay silent because silence makes us accomplices. I chose to fight, not for myself, but for all those who have no voice against this mafia. At the end of her testimony, a respectful silence filled the air, broken only by the judge calling the next witness. Camila returned to her seat, feeling the weight of her words settling on the shoulders of everyone present. When the courtroom finally closed for the day, Camila stood, exhausted but resilient. A crowd gathered outside the courthouse. In front were Sergio Ruiz's supporters, their faces twisted in fury and disdain. They must have been threatened to be there and held signs, shouting threatening words and blocking Camila's exit. The hatred in their eyes was evident and terrifying. Camila stopped, her heart beating uncontrollably. Marco placed a hand on her shoulder, whispering, "We are not alone in this." Looking around, she saw that some present in the courtroom, moved by her testimony, began to join her, forming a human shield. Together they walked out, facing the shouts and hostile stares. Back at the refuge of her home, after the confrontation at the courthouse, Camila was relieved to see Luz and Joaquin playing quietly on the living room floor. The innocence of their laughter in sharp contrast to the gravity Camila felt. After the testimony, she joined them on the floor, trying to find solace in the normalcy of being a mother, but her mind was restless. What if I went too far? She wondered, looking at her children. What if my fight for justice only puts them in greater danger? The idea that her actions could bring irreversible consequences for Joaquin and Luz was an almost unbearable burden. The next morning, the tension was palpable in the air. Camila knew that this would be a decisive day. She dressed carefully, trying to project a confidence she did not feel. In the courtroom, the atmosphere was even more charged. The judge began the session, and Camila watched as Sergio Ruiz's defense tried to discredit her and Diego's testimony. But the evidence was overwhelming. When it was time for the jury to deliberate, the silence in the room was almost deafening. The minutes seemed to drag on as everyone waited. Finally the jury returned, and the verdict was read, guilty on all charges. There was a mix of reactions in the room. Camila felt a wave of relief and emotion, while Sergio Ruiz's supporters showed indignation. Marco, beside her, smiled and squeezed her hand. "You did it, Camila. Justice has been served." Sergio Ruiz was taken into custody, and the city began to process the impact of the trial. Over time, life began to stabilize. Camila and her children were relocated to a safe place, and with the support of Diego, Marco, and other friends, they began to rebuild their lives. Camila found a new job, and her children adapted well to the new school. Gradually, the shadow of fear dissipated, giving way to new hope. Although the scars of the past remained, Camila knew she had done the right thing. Her courage had brought justice and hope not only to her but to the entire community. And so, with renewed determination and a new perspective on life, Camila looked to the future with hope, ready to face any challenge that came her way. Later, as she tucked them into bed, Camila kissed their foreheads, trying to convey a calm she did not feel. "Good night, my loves. Everything will be all right," she murmured, more as a promise to herself than a guarantee for them. After ensuring they were asleep, Camila sat at the table under the dim light, allowing herself a moment of despair. The fight seemed endless, and for a moment, she pondered the possibility of giving up. It was then that the public phone rang outside, cutting through the night silence like an alarm. Hesitant, Camila ran to it and answered, fearing it might be someone sent by Sergio. "Camila Reyes." The voice on the other end was distorted, almost unrecognizable due to a voice modulator. "Yes, who's speaking?" Camila replied, her voice trembling. "I can't say who I am, but I know what you need. I have in my possession one last piece of evidence that can change the game in your favor, one that can ensure Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices don't escape this time." Camila felt her heart race. "How can I believe you? How do I know this isn't a trap?" "You can't know," the voice admitted. "But I was the one who gave you the previous documents that proved some things about Sergio. So you know you're safe with me. I'll be at the city park at dawn, alone. If you want the truth, come and get it." The call ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving Camila with the receiver still in her hand and a whirlwind of thoughts racing through her mind. It was an opportunity, perhaps the last, to get what she needed to ensure justice, but it could also be a fatal risk. Camila spent the night awake, pondering her decision. At the first ray of sunlight, she made her choice, strengthened by the thought that every step she took was for a cause greater than her own safety. With renewed determination, she prepared for the meeting, knowing this could be the turning point in her relentless fight for justice. At dawn, Camila walked toward the city park, where the decisive meeting was scheduled. The morning mist still covered the park, turning each bench and tree into a scene of mystery and tension. She remained alert, attentive to any suspicious movement. Finally, she spotted a solitary figure near the lake, wrapped in a large coat. Cautiously, Camila approached, feeling that this moment could be both a trap and the key to her fight. The figure lowered the hood, revealing a woman with eyes marked by a grim resolve. "Camila Reyes?" the woman asked in a low voice. "Yes, it's me. You said you had something for me," Camila replied, trying to maintain her composure. The woman handed Camila a thick envelope. "I was Sergio Ruiz's assistant. Here are recordings of Sergio admitting everything, from bribes to manipulations. I can't live with this anymore. I hope it helps." Camila held the envelope, her hands trembling. "Why now? I saw what he did to people, to you, and I can't be part of it any longer. I thought being on his side would bring me safety, but it only brought guilt," the woman explained before quickly walking away, leaving Camila with the recordings in her hands. Back at her refuge, Camila examined the contents of the envelope. The recordings were incriminating, clearly detailing the crimes of Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices. She knew she had the key to finally bring down Sergio's corrupt empire. With renewed determination, she contacted Marco and Diego to discuss the next steps. "I have the final evidence. Let's ensure Sergio and everyone involved are brought to justice," she said firmly. The trial resumed with the presentation of the new evidence. The recordings were played in court, and Sergio's expression changed from confident to panicked. The evidence was irrefutable, detailing every scheme, every bribe, every manipulation. The silence in the courtroom was absolute, broken only by the judge's voice announcing the verdict: guilty on all charges. Camila felt a wave of relief and emotion. Justice had finally prevailed. Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices were taken into custody, and the city began to process the impact of the trial. Over time, life began to stabilize for Camila and her children. They were relocated to a safe place, and with the continuous support of Diego and Marco, they started to rebuild their lives. Camila found a new job, and her children adapted well to the new school. Gradually, the shadow of fear dissipated, giving way to new hope. Although the scars of the past remained, Camila knew she had done the right thing. Her courage had brought justice and hope not only to her but to the entire community. With renewed determination and a new perspective on life, Camila looked to the future with hope, ready to face any challenge that came her way. Her story became a symbol of resilience and determination, inspiring others to fight for what is right, even when the obstacles seemed insurmountable. And so, with the support of her new community and the unwavering strength of her family, Camila began a new journey, full of possibilities and hope. The next day, returning to court, the recordings were played before the judge and jury. Sergio tried to defend himself, but the evidence was undeniable. During the trial, he was forced to admit his motivations in a stunning declaration. "I believed I could control everything and everyone. Power blinded me to justice and morality. I was wrong," Sergio confessed, his demeanor finally broken. At the end of the trial, the judge addressed Camila directly before pronouncing the sentence. "Ms. Reyes, your bravery and determination not only exposed a deep network of corruption but also saved this community from future harm. It is only fair that you be rewarded for your heroism and for all the hardships you faced." Thus, the judge ordered a significant portion of the assets confiscated from Sergio Ruiz to be awarded to Camila, as a form of reparation and recognition for her crucial role in the case. With this financial reward, Camila not only secured a bright educational future for Luz and Joaquin but also acquired a new house, symbolizing a fresh start for the family. Weeks later, Camila's story was often told as an example of courage and integrity. She became an inspiring figure in her community, encouraging others to speak out against injustice and threats. "You changed our city, Mom," Joaquin said, looking at the starry sky from the yard of their new home. Camila smiled, stroking her son's hair. "We changed it, my love, all of us who chose to speak up, and will continue to change it, always for the better." It was the peace of knowing that the fight had been worth it, and that peace was the greatest prize of all. 5 years after the trial that shook the foundations of her city, Camila watched her children in the yard of their new home, bathed in the sun that symbolized the new life they had built. Luz, now a bright teenager, studied under the shade of a large tree, while Joaquin, taller and almost a young man, helped with the garden plants. The education Camila had secured with the financial reward transformed their lives. Luz showed a remarkable talent for science, dreaming of becoming an engineer, while Joaquin developed a passion for literature, often found with a book in hand, lost in worlds created by words. Finally, Camila had found a stable job, and the children no longer lived in need, happy with their mother. The community around them had also changed. Where fear and corruption once reigned, a spirit of cooperation and justice now flourished. Camila played a crucial role in this transformation, not just as the woman who challenged Sergio Ruiz, but as an inspiring figure who continued to work with the community to ensure the shadows of the past did not return. Sergio Ruiz and his accomplices, after being convicted, spent their days in prison. The recordings brought by his former assistant were the final blow to his corruption network, dismantling not only his illicit operations but also serving as a warning to others who ventured down similar paths. Diego, recovered from his injuries, became the local police chief, leading an era of reforms and transparency within the force. He and Camila maintained a strong friendship, united by a shared history of struggle and overcoming. Diego frequently visited Camila's home, each encounter a reminder of their shared journey and the bonds they had formed. On a quiet afternoon during one of his visits, Camila was preparing tea while reflecting on the impact of her story. Her struggle had been transformed into a local documentary, used in schools as a lesson on the importance of integrity and courage. "It's strange to think that our story is studied. I just returned the money and reported what I discovered. I just did my part," Camila commented. "But it's important," Diego replied. "It's a reminder that, no matter how difficult it is, it's worth fighting for what's right. No matter the difficulty, it is necessary to remain honest," he continued. Diego's company brought laughter and always welcome energy. They sat in the garden, the sun setting behind the trees. The conversation flowed between the past and the future, between memories of dark times and plans for a brighter tomorrow. "You changed our city, Camila. You changed our lives," Diego said, raising his cup in a toast. Camila smiled, looking at her children who joined them. "We all changed it and will continue to change it, always for the better," she said, as the night fell over the city that once trembled under the weight of corruption, now illuminated by the promise of justice and renewal. Camila felt truly at peace, not only for having won the battle but for knowing that her struggle would inspire others not to fear the darkness, to stand up and speak out, no matter how powerful the forces against them might be. And in that truth, Camila found not only peace but a purpose that would define the rest of her days. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to continue bringing exciting stories. Don't miss the next incredible narrative that is about to appear on your screen. We greatly appreciate having you here with us. Now you can click on one of the videos appearing on the screen. We have a special selection just for you, full of valuable stories and guaranteed entertainment. See you there.